And welcome on back to the Spectrum, where we're just minutes away from getting started. Utah State taking on the Southern Utah Thunderbirds in Mountain Rim Gymnastics Conference action. We mentioned it before the break, but these are two really evenly matched teams. The biggest differential is when you look at Southern Utah, and they've had a few really incredible meets. I mean, they set the second highest mark of program history, a 196.8 back in February against BYU, but then they've been down a little bit, and I mean, last week, not the greatest meet, 194.9 against Denver, so you just don't really know what to expect from this Southern Utah team.
Absolutely. SUU has kind of been a little bit inconsistent, while Utah State has been pretty consistent in climbing their scores. So it really just depends on what we're going to see tonight. And I think that's really exciting for both teams. It all really just depends on their performance tonight. And it's not really just about consistency at this point. It's just about who can bring out their best gymnastics.
Well, yeah, Southern Utah, you mentioned it. They've been up and down in Utah State. They started out not so hot, but they've been climbing almost every single week coming off of the two highest scores of the season. And so I really do think it's going to be evenly matched. I'm excited to watch it. Southern Utah last week, they were at Denver, number 12 team in the nation. They posted a 194.9, while Utah State, their last meet, they were at the BYU quad meet against BYU, Penn State, and Texas Women's, and they posted a 195.725 to place third ahead of Texas Women's. And so that was last Saturday. We're just about to get underway. Utah State going to start things off for us on the vault with Autumn DeHardy taking the first vault of the night for Utah State.
Wonderful Yurchenko full there. You saw the chest was a little bit down, which caused her to jump back to create that step, but great start for Utah State.
So there's Autumn on the vault, and now over to the bars. For Southern Utah, they're going to start with Becky Rosa. Let's go ahead and read through the lineup as we wait for this to start. On the vault for the Aggies, following Autumn, next we'll see Jasmine Estrella, then Ellie Gullison, Madison Ward, Faith Leary, then Michaela Meyer. And for Southern Utah, it's Becky Rosa, then Madison McBride, Madison Howlett, Kirsten Yee, Karen Gonzalez, and then Autumn Jorgensen.
Right there you saw her two release moves connected, gorgeously connected. Very nice flow to this routine, very fluid, exactly what you want to see. Great double back right to that stick. Wonderful start for SUU.
So now right back over to the vault. Utah State has Jasmine Estrella coming up. Jasmine, sophomore from Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Jasmine recorded a 9.850 last week, which is also her career high. So she's coming off with a career high on this event. Hopefully some energy, hopefully to repeat that or get a higher score this week. Now again from Jasmine, we will be seeing the same vault that we saw DeHardy doing, which is a Yurchenko full half. Now that is only start valued at a 9.95, and with this meet having every 10th count, we want to see all those 10.0 vaults that we can. Huge height there. An amplitude on that vault. Slight step back, but another great vault, and hopefully that will be a repeat for her score last week.
So back over to the bars for Southern Utah. It's going to be Madison McBride. Madison has been good on the bars this season, but coming off a 9.3, so likely a fall last week. We'll see how she bounces back from that performance.
Absolutely. SUU had a little bit of a rough meet last week, getting two 9.3s, so they had to count one of those 9.3s towards their final bar score, which you don't want to do. Hopefully you want to count all scores above a 9.7, and if you can hopefully get all scores above a 9.8, that usually confirms that you'll get a 49, which is exactly what the judges want, or what the team wants. That was a very difficult skill there. You saw how she performed that release move out of a front giant. So that's a reverse grip from what they normally do, which is very difficult. But she executed it perfectly. A little short on the handstand. Gorgeous double A. Nice and high on that. Very difficult routine that's going to bring out a huge score.
So now up on the vault for Utah State, Ellie Gullison The first two scores are in: DeHardy with a 9.725 and Estrella with a 9.8.
Very difficult vault there. We saw that as a front handspring entrance vault. So instead of doing the round-off back handspring onto the vault, you saw the front handspring entrance. Slight step there, but great vault. That will be a 10.0 start value for Utah State.
So Southern Utah's Madison Howlett is up next on the bars. Madison Howlett, a sophomore from Orem, Utah, not too far from home, competing for the Thunderbirds. The first score on the bars for Southern Utah that we have is Becky Rosa with a monster 9.875. So a good start for the Thunderbirds.
Madison Howlett received a 9.825 last week. Very good score. Definitely helped out her team last week with that score on bars.
So I believe we're waiting on the score to come in for McBride before Madison Howlett starts. And that score, a 9.8 for Madison McBride. So 2 9.8s or higher to start things off on the bars for the Thunderbirds. Last week, Southern Utah recorded a 48.625 in that meet. So a little bit of room for improvement there.
Huge release move there. You saw the height that she got on that, but it looks like she hit her foot on the bar. That will just be a small deduction, but definitely throws off your rhythm. But she's been catching it up very well. Right into that dismount. Full twisting double back. Wonderful dismount. And held on to that release move to create a good routine.
Now over to the vault for Utah State. Here comes Madison Ward.
I love Madison's run and her long strides that she takes. Huge vault, very nice. Again, that Yurchenko full to that stick. Definitely seen that work that's been in practice coming to work and performing a great vault performance. Now I talked to Coach Smith this week about Madison Ward, and Coach Smith that she says she's definitely a leader by example and a workhorse and everything you want in a gymnast. So it's nice to have Madison on the team.
So here over on the bars is Kirsten Yee, the redshirt senior from Aliso Viejo, California.
Kirsten Yee also bringing out a huge performance last week with a 9.875.
And she's been consistent all season long. Not one score on the bars under a 9.8. And several over 9.85, 9.9. Incredible gymnast for Southern Utah.
Looks like she was just a little bit too far away from that bar, wasn't able to grab onto it. Luckily, SUU has done very well so far, so hopefully they'll be able to drop that score. You see head coach Scott Bauman giving her a little push up there. Again, that release move, you saw those arms bend as well, so that will be a deduction. Which is unusual for a gymnast that we were just talking about, getting those 9.8s and 9.9s, very consistent. Definitely just something happened. Gymnastics is so mental that it really can get, just depends on the moment.
So now back over to the vault. Here comes Faith Leary. Her last two meets, a 9.9 and then a 9.825. Looking to continue a couple of big performances.
Great Yurchenko full, slight hop back. Very wonderful performance. She's definitely a great vaulter and a good asset for Utah State on vault.
A couple of scores as we wait for the next bars performance. Ellie Gullison, a 9.75 on the vault, and Madison Ward, a 9.85 on the vault. So a couple of big scores there for the Aggies. And then on the bars, Madison Howlett recorded a 9.675 for the Thunderbirds. Coming up next is Karen Gonzalez for Southern Utah. Gonzalez, senior from Murrieta, California.
Now we will be seeing Gonzalez on every single event tonight. She is one of our all-around performers. So it's going to be interesting to see what she can bring for for Southern Utah.
You mentioned it, an all-around performer along with Autumn Jorgensen. So the final two gymnasts here on the bars for Southern Utah are all-arounders, the only two of the evening. Gonzalez, she's been all-arounder the last 3 meets, and those are the only 3 of the season she's done, while Jorgensen the last 7.
Being an all-around gymnast is definitely a very difficult task. These gymnasts are in practice usually a lot longer. They're working on all their mental focus in the gym, and requires a lot more physical care, mental care, to take care of your body so you're able to come out and perform these routines week after week, sometimes twice a week, to be able to stay healthy enough to make it to regionals and nationals and perform great routines for your team.
Now, again, it does seem that we're waiting on a score as we've got a little bit of discussion going on over at the judges' table following Kirsten Yee's performance. Likely one that Southern Utah is going to be able to drop after that fall. So it may not matter in the long run, but always good to make sure they got it right. So that's going on, and we'll have to wait for just a moment before Karen Gonzalez is able to take her turn.
Absolutely. Sometimes just judges, we have one judge sitting on one side of the bar and the other judge is on the other side of the bar. So sometimes they just may see a different angle, see something different, and may disagree on a point or a skill. So then they can come together and try to figure out how they can give the gymnast a very fair score and the appropriate score that the gymnast should be getting. And it looks like they just resolved that issue, so they're going to be working on their final scores right now. So it looks like her start value was a 9.7, so they degraded her start value.
So the score for Yee is going to be a 9-0 even. And so, again, one that they're likely going to be able to drop, and they certainly hope that they can. But that's figured, and Karen Gonzalez is now going for the Thunderbirds.
A little short on that release move again right there. Looks like she just overshot it and did it a little bit too low, but very good recovery with that. Huge double A, very straight body, very nice dismount to round off her score.
And finally on the vault for Utah State, closing things out for this rotation, Michaela Meyer will be the final gymnast for Utah State. Meyer, freshman from Myersville, Maryland.
Very nice vault. Very happy with that, and she should be. It was a great vault. Wonderful job by Michaela.
And the final performance of this rotation will be Southern Utah's Autumn Jorgensen. Well, I suppose we'll have an exhibition here from Utah State in a moment, but the final bars routine will be Autumn Jorgensen for Southern Utah.
Now, Autumn did have a 9.3 last week, so again, most likely a fall. Utah State, or Southern Utah, can definitely not afford another fall or some bent arms or any mistakes in this routine. So it also adds a lot of pressure on Autumn, but being the all-arounder that she is, being the upperclassman that she is, I definitely think that she'll be able to pull this routine together and bring out a good score for Southern Utah.
Now, while this is the last meet of the regular season, the Mountain Rim Gymnastics Conference Championships is next week, and that's in Cedar City. So the Thunderbirds get a pleasure of hosting that. Utah State got to last year. It's a rotating championship, but certainly a big advantage and something that is so fun to be able to have at your home arena.
Absolutely, and anytime you can have a meet at your home arena, have your home crowd, be in your home state and home city, it definitely brings a whole nother element of excitement and energy into the arena.
So Autumn Jorgensen takes off. Score from Karen Gonzalez on the bars, 9.7.
Wonderful connection there. I think that's the best we've seen from Southern Utah tonight. Again, you see those front giants, very difficult right into that double back. Wonderful routine. Definitely what Southern Utah needs at this time.
You can see the Southern Utah team love that one. They came pouring out onto the mats immediately following. Now I believe we're going to have an exhibition from Michaela Bullitt.
Michaela Bullitt actually just went and did her vault. Since it was an exhibition, she just kind of just went for it.
I was paying attention to the bars, and she went without us, but that's all right. So the final two scores from the vault for Utah State, the final two individual scores, Faith Leary a 9.825 and Michaela Meyer a 9.825. So a couple of big scores there, and Utah State will be able to drop to Hardy's 9.725, keeping a low score of 9.75. So not a bad rotation there for Utah State.
Absolutely. Utah State had a great rotation, bringing out that 49.050. Again, anytime that you can get that 49 is exactly what you wanted for a team score on any event.
Yeah, so you mentioned it as it's just barely been announced at 49.050 for Utah State in that rotation. The last 2 weeks on the vault, Utah State's been able to get 49 plus, and those are the only 2 weeks that they've been able to do so. So good to see some steady improvement there. We do have an exhibition here going on from Southern Utah, so we'll keep an eye on that. But Southern Utah's final individual score, Jorgensen with a 9.85. So solid score there, and the Southern Utah team score, I believe, is haven't seen it yet. No, it's going to be 48.050. So a 1 point differential.
That all the other teams in the Mountain Rim Gymnastics Championship, they have stuff to lose. Where Utah State, they only have stuff to gain, so they can only go up from here, only looking to go up, where Southern Utah has to look out to going down or up. So I feel like Utah State's in a really good place right now. SUU is doing really good too, so it's going to be interesting to see how this meet comes out.
And I think that's a little bit of what we saw there in the first rotation. Utah State with nothing to lose. So, second rotation, Southern Utah will be on the vault. They're going to start with Madison McBride, followed by Autumn Jorgensen, Molly Jazwarowski, Karen Gonzalez, Madison Loomis, and Gian Braley to close it out. And so we're going to start things out here with Madison McBride. Something to note is that Southern Utah is without Megan McBride, the 3-time Mountain Rim Gymnastics Conference Vault Specialist of the Week. And she's been out for the last 2 meets.
Huge Octanko full again. Very nice. Slight step, but good start.
Now over to the bars. Utah State going to start out with Leighton Varnador, followed by Michaela Bullitt, Madison Ward, Brittany Jepson, Jasmine Estrella, and Michaela Meyer to close it out for the Aggies. So here is Leighton Varnador.
Leighton has definitely been a very good bar swinger for Utah State, definitely what they need. Huge transition up to the high bar right there, good amplitude. Gorgeous double pike dismount. Just a very solid start. I love how Leighton is so consistent gymnast, even as a freshman. Definitely hoping to see big things from her coming up in these next 2 meets and hopefully in the next few seasons.
Here comes Autumn Jorgensen over to the vault for Southern Utah. Jorgensen, again, an all-arounder tonight. She did not do the all-around last week, but did post a 9.8 on the vault.
Very high vault again. Looks like all these girls are just springing right off that vault, which is exactly what we want to see. Huge amplitude and tight, fast spins, which we've seen all night long.
And back over to the bars, Michaela Bullitt coming up for Utah State. Michaela did only have a 9.15 last week, so a fall there, and looking to bounce back, come back stronger this week.
Next on bars from Utah State.
Absolutely. Coming off of a hard week, that can either drive you to motivate you to do a lot better, or sometimes it gets inside your head. But I've seen with this Utah State team is they don't let anything get in their head. They're always coming back week after week, looking for improvements, always putting in the hours in practice to come out and just re-give a great performance.
Now, Utah State has kind of struggled on the bars this season. Last week, a 48.575. 2 weeks ago, though, they were able to get their season-high 48.925, so they've still yet to break that 49 mark, and you bet they'd love to do it here tonight.
Great release move. Very difficult coming off of that reverse grip to go right into that release on the high bar. Much better routine than last week, as we've seen. Great double leg. That's the best that I've seen it. Better than in her warm-ups that she just barely did. Definitely thrives off competition, which is so nice.
Now back over to the vault. Here's Molly Jazwakorski for Southern Utah. 9.75 last week and 9.9 the week before that.
You just saw a huge vault there. That was again that was a SUU entry vault. So instead of entering frontwards on the vault, she went sideways, which we call a SUU. Very difficult to start from that, but executed very beautifully.
So a few scores as we wait for Madison Ward. Madison McBride a 9.775 on the vault. Autumn Jorgensen a 9.8 for Southern Utah. And on the bars, Utah State's Leighton Varnador a 9.75. Yet to get Michaela Bullett's score. But Madison Ward just about to start. Looks like a 9.8 is what they're going to say for Michaela Bullett.
Madison Ward coming off of her career, or not her career high, her season high on bars with a 9.85. So coming off of a good score from last week, hoping to repeat that or get that higher score again.
Madison Ward does have 2 bars titles this season, 7 total titles. Very consistent gymnast for the Aggies.
Very nice height on that release right down to the low bar, that transition. That's exactly textbook of how I want to see it. Huge dismount. Madison has brought great meet so far, hoping to still continue it. Wonderful performance by Madison Ward.
Now back over to the vault. Southern Utah's Karen Gonzalez, an all-arounder for the Thunderbirds, a 9.725 in last week's performance on the vault.
Again, you saw that SUU vault with that tuck full off. Very difficult. It's nice to see a team bringing out something different from that Yurchenko full, bringing out some creativity into their skills. I love watching these vaults that are difficult and showcase the gymnast abilities very well. Very good performance by Karen.
Score for Molly Jazwikowski on the vault, a 9.775. And for Utah State, Brittany Jepson is coming up on the bars.
Brittany Jepson also coming off of a season high of 9.825. Brittany is definitely one of the most consistent gymnasts I've seen on bars. Always bringing it every single week. She is a bar specialist. Oh, looks like she just got a little bit too far away from that bar. Wasn't able to grab onto it. You saw her hit it with her fingertips. So now this is where Coach Smith looks at strategy. I was talking to her, and gymnastics is a very strategic sport about who you're going to put in the lineups, who you're going to bring out. So it's going to be interesting to see what routines the girls come out with coming up. But again, you see Brittany not trying to give away any tenths, even with that fall, because every tenth counts. I feel like that's our motto this year. Very good double A dismount. Slight step, a little bit far away from the bar, but great recovery.
Now, while that was a score that Utah State's going to hope to drop, they do have a few high scores on the bars, including a 9.875 from Madison Ward. Now, back over to the vault, it's Madison Loomis for Southern Utah.
Now that was just a Yurchenko layout, so instead of doing that full twist, it was just a layout. So it was just a very clean routine. So that start value will be a little bit lower than a 9.95. But considering Utah State or Southern Utah's vault scores right now, I definitely think that even with that lower score, it'll still be a good score for Southern Utah.
In the 5th spot on the bars for Utah State, it's Jasmine Estrella, the sophomore from Allentown, Pennsylvania, 9-7 against BYU last week.
So
Before that, a season-high 9-8-7-5. My apologies.
Yeah, sorry. Utah State, Jasmine Estrella, she had a little bit of a rough patch right in the middle of meet season. She got injured and wasn't able to compete for a few meets for bars, which really hurt Utah State's bar team. But now that she's back, she's definitely brought a huge help and huge scores for Utah State on bars. Great Tkachev release move. Very consistent routine, very fluid. Right into the dismount. Double A, right to a stick. Gorgeous routine. That's the best I've ever seen Jasmine perform. Hopefully going to bring out a huge score for Utah State.
Crowd loved that one. You heard an explosion of excitement from the crowd after that one. So we'll see how the score translates from that. For Southern Utah.
So it looks like Southern Utah only is going to compete 5 girls on vault, which they did last week as well.
It's interesting. They were going to have Gian Braley go. But, yeah, coach says they're going to stick with 5. I guess they're happy with the scores they have, which we'll announce shortly. But Utah State does still have one more to go on the bars, which is Michaela Meyer.
So Michaela Meyer, I talked to Coach Smith about Michaela Meyer this week. Michaela Meyer is capable of a 10.0 start value routine, but sometimes her dismount's kind of giving her her dismount is a little bit more difficult, and so she's working on that, getting her strength back. But it all depends on strategy about whether she's going to perform that, whether the scores that we've seen so far, if Coach Smith is happy with them. Michaela Meyer will attempt her 10.0 routine, or if not, we'll go for a little bit lower start value, but somewhat cleaner routine. So it's very strategic, as you can see. So we're going to be interested to see what Michaela can perform tonight.
But here's a big score for Utah State. Jasmine Estrella with a new career high 9.925 from that bars routine. And
Huge
that should give
score.
Utah State a little bit of motivation.
Absolutely. It also gives Michaela Meyer a little bit of energy coming into this routine. Wonderful release. Jaeger straddle to a half. Wonderful. Very difficult. Gorgeous routine right into that double back. Slight step, but great routine.
So Southern Utah's final 2 scores on the vault, final 2 individual scores, Karen Gonzalez a 9.75, Madison Loomis with a 9.55. So because they did not exercise a 6th gymnast and have all 6 go, they're going to have to keep that 9.55, which I'm sure is a little bit lower than they'd like to. So it's an interesting strategy. But with final scores coming for the round and a score coming from Michaela Meyer, that feels like a solid round for Utah State.
Absolutely. We've definitely seen huge things from Utah State on bars. Hopefully that will come out to be a 49-team score for them, which will be a nice heading into these next few rotations.
Yeah, I mentioned it a moment ago, but Utah State still yet to get that 49 mark on the bars. And what a way to end the season if they could do that tonight. They are going to be able to drop the 9.9 that came on the fall from Brittany Jepson. So that's the good news for Utah State. And there's some monster scores in there, especially Jasmine Estrella's 9.925. That's just phenomenal. So we're going to have a exhibition here from Annie Beck. So always good for a freshman like Annie Beck to be able to get out there and get a little bit of practice on the bars in front of a crowd.
Absolutely, and Annie Beck has competed on bars previously for Utah State when they were in desperate need of some bar swingers, and she performed really well, so it's nice to see her coming back and hopefully trying to get into these lineups and get into the lineups for next season and potentially regionals.
The 9.925
Right
from Jasmine Estrella ties for the 6th highest mark in program history. So a lot to be excited about from this rotation for Aggie fans. We're still waiting on Myers' final score and the final team score from this rotation. So we'll keep it here for just a moment. But Aggies, 2 solid rotations in the books. Southern Utah, just a few small things here and there that I feel like they can improve on, and we've got a competitive meet.
Absolutely. Again, this meet is coming down to the tenths and to the very little elements, the pointed toes, the straight legs, the handstands. So it's going to be, again, a tight competition, even with these sort of these strategic moves that both of these coaches are making.
Now, I'm not entirely sure what the holdup is. Oh, looks like we've finally got the score from Michaela Meyer, a 9.75. And so we'll wait for the computers to figure that all out, because they could do it faster than I can in my head. And we'll have the final rotational scores here for you in just a moment. But Utah State, again, they're going to be able to drop Jepson's 9.9 after the fall. And the lowest score they're going to keep is a 9.75. So really not a bad rotation for the Aggies at all.
Absolutely. That's so nice to see the Aggies coming back on bars. Even with their little rough patch that they've had throughout the season, all their ups and downs, losing 3 of their best bar team members throughout the season and having to come up with replacements for them. So it's nice to see the Aggies coming back strong on bars.
Now, again, this is the final meet, the final home meet, and the final meet of the regular season. But these teams are going to see each other again next week at the Mountain Rim Gymnastics Conference Championship in Southern Utah. So they'll see each other back-to-back weeks. That's going to be the 24th down again in Cedar City. So that should be a fun one. I remember how fun it was to have it up here last year. I remember watching all 4 of the Mountain Rim teams, which are so competitive, and it's such a good conference, top to bottom, that I'm excited to watch that one as well.
Absolutely. It's always so fun to see all these teams compete. And with the Mountain Rim Gymnastics, each of these teams see each other at an away meet and at a home meet. So it's nice to see all these teams. They get used to competing with each other. And so it's always fun to watch the championship and to see it all come together in their regionals.
Now, I'm not sure if there's a scoring dispute or exactly what the holdup is, but we will cut out to a quick break, and we'll have the rotational final scores and the current running score for you in just a moment when we come back, as well as the third rotation where Utah State will be on the beam and Southern Utah on the floor. So we'll be back in just a moment. And welcome on back to the D. Glenn Smith Spectrum for Mountain Rim Gymnastics Conference action. Utah State and Southern Utah going at it. It's tight through a couple, though we still don't have the final scores from the second rotation. We'll have them shortly, I'd imagine. I guess I could add them all up, pull out the calculator, but unless there was a discrepancy or a change, I'm not sure exactly what the deal was. But it looks like we should be getting them shortly.
It looks like there was actually a score discrepancy. The judges haven't made their way over from bars. They haven't made their way over to beam yet. So it looks like we're going to have a little bit of a hold up on beam while the judges get over from bars to beam to settle into their chairs and get ready for the next rotation.
It's all good. We could keep it here and just keep on talking gymnastics. Utah State, I mean, it's been kind of an interesting season for the Aggies because, again, you start out pretty rough. Your first meet, it doesn't go the way that you want it to. And in the first few meets, really, it took a little bit for them to get going. But I feel like at this point in the season, they've gotten just about to the point where they were last year, and that was a really good team. And it would just be a true bummer if they weren't able to qualify for regionals and barely missed that cut, which is why today and next week are so important.
Absolutely, they are so close. Only 2 spots to be able to make it into the Super 6, make it into regionals. So super close. And when I was talking to Coach Smith this week, I had her asked her to describe this season for me, and said very consistent and adaptable team, which I totally agree with her. And with it being senior and alumni tonight, we actually don't have any seniors that will be graduating from this team. So this whole team is going to be able to come back next season with a handful of new freshmen and be able to perform again. And they're just starting off their momentum now, so it's nice to see that their momentum is coming back and hoping to progress. So we'll be seeing Utah State on beam and Southern Utah on floor. Both are good strengths for both of these teams. So it's super nice to be able to see both of these teams sort of comfortable in their element, sort of comfortable on these events. Utah State has performed super well on beam lately with less falls than I've seen from past seasons. So it's nice to see Utah State coming out.
So it appears what happened is that there was a little bit of a mix-up. Jasmine's score raised, or I'm sorry, Brittany's score raised from a 9-0 to a 9-1-9-5, which truly doesn't matter because that's going to be the one dropped. Michaela Meyer's score goes from a 9-7-5 down to a 9-6-5. So that will affect Utah State. That score will hold, and that will be the low score for the round that Utah State will keep. That said, looks like we're just about to get the running total, and so we'll read that off. So after all of that, the score from the round for Utah State, they're able to bring in the 49 for the first time this year. Aggies get a 49 even, and Southern Utah in that rotation on the vault, a 48-6-5 for a running score of Utah State 48-05 to Southern Utah 97-55. So what kind of, how incredible is that for Utah State to go throughout the entire season not achieving the 49 and then getting an even 49 here in the final meet before the postseason starts? It's a great story for Utah State.
Absolutely, just like you said, in the final meet, at home, at the Spectrum, getting that 49, which they've worked so hard this year to do, and even with all their challenges with bars, losing 3 of their best bar workers, coming back, fighting, getting Jasmine Estrella back. It's been such a good transition for the Aggies coming back and showing that they can be one of these top 36 teams and compete in regionals. And so it's so nice to see them coming back and getting that 49. I'm sure they're all super excited about that, and hopefully that will kind of propel them into these next 2 events, and we'll see some huge scores coming out.
Well, and with these last 2 events coming, I'd say 2 of Utah State's really strong events, the floor and the beam, they've already got a half a point lead on Southern Utah. Of course, the head-to-head not nearly as important as your overall score, but when you're a couple of in-state teams, you see each other all the time, it's always good to come up with a win. So the Aggies, they've got a lot of momentum going their way, and these last 2 rotations should be a lot of fun to watch. Now, let's go ahead and take a look over who is going to be performing for each of these teams in this next rotation. The Aggies, again, they're going to be on the beam. So they're going to start with Ellie Gullison, followed by Leighton Varnador, Taylor Dittmar, Autumn DeHardy, Emily Briones, and McKinley Pavachik. And for Southern Utah on the floor, they're going to start with Karen Gonzalez, Molly Jazwiakowski, Autumn Jorgensen, Madison McBride, Hannah Nip, and Madison Loomis.
So something awesome that we'll be seeing from these both teams on beam, Autumn DeHardy and Hannah Nip, or Autumn DeHardy from Utah State and Hannah Nip from Southern Utah. Both are co-mountain and gymnastics champions on the beam, so both would be competing their best events on the beam today. So it's going to be interesting to see that matchup between those 2.
Southern Utah, historically, especially in recent history, a very, very strong floor team. They're always just one of the best on the floor. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. But Utah State is underway on the beam as we now have Ellie Gullison for the Aggies performing.
And here goes Ellie Gullison with her famous series pass here. Very difficult layout, step out. Looks like she just couldn't hold on to that landing there. Looks like she was just a little bit off center on that, unfortunately. So hopefully Utah State can just right out of the gate drop this score.
Well, and it's always tough to see that happen, especially on the first go of the rotation, because then you know that the next 5 have to stay on the beam.
Absolutely. Adds a little bit of a pressure to the team, but again, this team is so good about coming back after a teammate falls, putting that behind them and just performing their own gymnastics. But that was a great dismount, full off. Tell Ellie's a little bit frustrated with herself from that. But hopefully that the other girls will be able to come back and bring out strong scores for Utah State.
So over to the floor for Southern Utah, Karen Gonzalez. I was mentioning just a moment ago, Southern Utah always a really good floor team, and this season, almost every meet above 49. You've also got a 49.375 in there, 49.325. So it's always fun to watch the Thunderbirds on the floor.
Round up by handspring double tuck. Gorgeous double tuck there. It looked like she was just floating in the air there. Didn't even look difficult for her at all, which is exactly what the judges want to see. Huge jumps and leaps there, way past that 180-degree mark that the judges are looking for. Very nice leap pass. Here we go for her second tumbling pass. Front lay, front full. So fun to see her personality coming out in this event. You can tell that she loves to perform on floor, loves seeing those smiles on your faces. Again, that artistry and performance does count for a little bit of your score for the artistic element, but it's also just funner to watch as a judge. When the gymnast is smiling, you can tell that they love gymnastics and love the sport. Right into her last tumbling pass. Front full half, let's call the Rudy. Very well performed, just what Southern Utah was looking for.
It's a good start for the Thunderbirds there. And over to the beam, Utah State's second performance of this rotation, Leighton Varnador.
Leighton is just a freshman this year, and she is competing on 3 out of 4 of the events. So hopefully we'll be able to see her in the all-around in the next few seasons. Series there, flick, layout, step out.
Varnador did have a 9.825 last week, so coming off a big performance.
Very nice full turn, very confident in this routine. I love how Leighton lets nothing get to her head. She's a very confident gymnast. So that front aerial, a little bit wobbly there, a little bit off center. Being on center on the beam is so crucial, again, because it's only 4 inches wide. You really got to engage your core and all parts of your muscles in your body to be able to stay calm with mentally and be able to perform well. Huge dismount, gainer full half. Hopefully going to bring out another huge score for Utah State.
So back to the floor for Southern Utah, Molly Jazwikowski. Jazwikowski has competed on the floor every meet this season for the Thunderbirds, along with vault for all but one.
So when you see a gymnast compete vault and floor only, it tells you that they're a very powerful gymnast. Vault and floor require a lot of power, require a lot of height and amplitude and strength. So it's very awesome to see a gymnast with all this height and power. So I'm looking forward to seeing her tumbling coming up in this first tumbling pass. Front full right to a layout step out. Again, you saw that huge amplitude, and for such a tiny gymnast, she definitely brings the power to that routine. A little bit of a dance element to calm her breathing down right before this next tumbling pass. Great double full and a half. Huge, very difficult skill. Executed so well. And so you saw that she only did 2 tumbling passes there. That's because those 2 tumbling passes were so difficult that they able to count for all her start value. So definitely a huge routine coming for Southern Utah.
The first couple of scores from this round, Ellie Gullison a 9.15. Again, one that Utah State will likely and hopefully be able to drop there. And Leighton Vornador a 9.825, so a big follow-up to that. Taylor Dittmar now on the beam for Utah State. And Karen Gonzalez on the floor, a 9.8 for the Thunderbirds.
Very difficult series there by Taylor. Very solid, not any wobbles from that. Saw that one-handed flick to the flick lay. Having that one hand creates a little bit less of power that you can get to get into that second layout, but she always performs it so well.
Utah State did have a 49.05 last week on the beam. Solid week there.
Right into that dismount. Gorgeous dismount, slight step there, but a very solid routine always comes out of Taylor, and again, we saw that tonight.
So coming up for Southern Utah on the floor, it's going to be Autumn Jorgensen. Southern Utah last week, I was talking about how great they've been on floor all season and in recent history. Last week, a little bit of a lower score, 48-775. So a score they're hoping to improve on tonight.
But so far, Southern Utah has performed so well and has such a great floor lineup and bringing out some great scores. It looks like right now we're having another judge confrontation. Maybe there's a little bit of discrepancy based on the scores or start value. So they're discussing that right now as we speak.
Judges are making their money tonight. Having to go back and look at a lot of these, but we do have a couple more scores that we can read, at least as long as they're going to stand. But Taylor Dittmar a 9.85 on the beam for Utah State. Molly Jazwakowski a 9.775 on the floor for Southern Utah. So here goes Autumn Jorgensen for the Thunderbirds.
Now, Autumn Jorgensen did not compete last week because she didn't do the all-around, but at this meet we've seen her do the all-around and has performed very well so far. Here we go for her first tumbling pass.
Jorgensen, 7-time all-arounder this season.
Double pike, huge double pike. Right into that next tumbling pass. Front lay, front full. Gorgeous front tumbling pass. Now all these girls are required to do a back tumbling pass and a front tumbling pass. So they're required to have some element forward and some acro element backwards. Gorgeous switch leap for her leap pass. It's a very high energy routine. She's doing so well so far. Great double tuck. Very high energy. Love the personality in that routine. Definitely something that I love watching about floor.
Coming up now on beam for Utah State, Autumn DeHardy. After Utah State took a fall on the first performance by Ellie Gullison, they've had a couple of great scores. Leighton Varnador 9.825, Taylor Dittmar 9.85, and Autumn trying to follow that up. She is the reigning Mountain Ridge Gymnastics Conference Beam Specialist of the Week.
Slight balance check there, a little bit of the arm wave there. Was able to hold on to that.
DeHardy a monster 9.925 last week. That's what earned her that honor one of the greatest marks in school history.
Absolutely, and with Autumn just being a freshman, definitely hoping to see her a lot in these beam lineups in these next few years coming up. Definitely think she'll be able to bring more powerful skills, and I'm excited to see what she's going to bring in these next few years.
4 beam titles this season alone for Autumn.
Very difficult jump pass there. You saw the pike jump into a straddle 3/4. Very well executed. Right into her dismount. Round off, double full, very well executed. We saw a few little wobbles in there, but very well executed, and she was able to hold on to all those little errors that she made. Very well executed.
Now back to the floor for Southern Utah. Here comes Madison McBride, sophomore from Orem, Utah. The 4th up for Southern Utah.
Madison coming off of a 9.80. Very good score. Huge double pike. Loving the amplitude I'm seeing from all these tumbling passes from Southern Utah. Front lay, front full again. Looks like that's a very popular tumbling pass for Southern Utah, but they've all executed it very well, so it works for them. Already back for her next tumbling pass. Great double back. Looks like her hands didn't barely even touch on that round off back handspring. Definitely a very powerful gymnast. Very well done.
A solid routine there from Madison McBride. And back over to the beam for the Aggies. Here comes Emily Briones.
Emily Briones is such a wonderful gymnast to watch. She has so much energy packed into that tiny little gymnast body that she's able to bring every single week, and the team always looks forward to that energy that she's bringing.
Briones did have her season low on the beam of 9.675 last week, but that speaks more to how good she's been the rest of the season.
Absolutely, and being one of the very few upperclassmen that Utah State has, she's able to pull through and has enough competition in the college setting that she's able to come back strong even the next week. A little bit of a balance check there with that lay coming up, but other than that, this has been a very great routine. Very good jump connection with that straddle 3/4. Headed right into her dismount. Great full off. Very good routine. Definitely going to be higher than last week.
A couple of scores as we get ready for the next floor routine. Autumn DeHardy on the beam, a 9.725 for Utah State. And on the floor for Southern Utah, Autumn Jorgensen brought in a 9.85. Now coming up is Hannah Nip for the Thunderbirds. Now Nip, she has only performed on the floor the last 2 weeks, and she did really well though, 9.75 and a 9.825 in those 2 performances.
Round off back handspring double pike. Very nice, right? Very nice first tumbling pass. This routine is a little bit of a slower routine, which is nice because you're able to see every little dance element that Hannah can do. right into her next tumbling pass. Round up back handspring, double tuck. Again, very nice, very well executed. Very similar to that double pike that she just performed in her first tumbling pass. As she goes right into that corner for her last tumbling pass. Front handspring, full front lay. With competing only for 2 meets, she's a very consistent gymnast, very confident out there on the floor, which is very nice to see for Southern Utah.
Couple more scores. Emily Briones brought in a 9.85 for the Aggies on the beam, and a 9.85 for Madison McBride on the floor as well. And now up for Utah State on the beam is the birthday girl, McKinley Pavachik, celebrating her birthday with us here at the Spectrum tonight.
Hopefully she can perform a great birthday routine. It's always nice to perform on your birthday. Always have a little bit extra adrenaline. Gorgeous series there. Front lay, flick, step out. McKinley, just a freshman, sneaking her way a little bit later in the season into lineups on beam and holds the anchor spot for beam, which is so nice to see a freshman coming out, redeeming herself for that. Oh, excuse me, she is a sophomore. But still a wonderful routine, very consistent, gorgeous aerial. It's one of my favorite elements to watch on beam. Just a cartwheel with no hands requires a lot of leg power, a lot of leg muscle. Here she goes right into her dismount. Flick, gainer, side pull, off, right to a stick. So happy with that routine. I love to see when gymnasts are so excited with their routines. Great birthday routine coming out from McKinley.
Yeah, happy birthday to her, and what a solid routine she was able to put on there. Now, another interesting development, because Southern Utah is once again going to stick with just 5 gymnasts, this time on the floor. They did it last week, and they're doing it again, so they will not have a 6th performer, meaning that all 5 of their current scores are going to have to stick. I mean, they have a solid bunch of scores in there. The final one that has not been announced, Hannah Nip at 9.8. So you're keeping, a 9.8, 9.85, 9.85, 9.775, and a 9.8. So it's not a bad score for them by any means. But it means that Madison Loomis will not compete on the floor as she was scheduled to for Southern Utah.
Absolutely. So just to talk about scores a little bit. So each team puts out normally 6 girls to compete, and they drop the lowest score, and they'll count the top 5 highest scores to go in towards their meet. So it's possible for each team to get a 50 with each team event, but obviously probably each of your girls are not going to get perfect 10, which is super awesome. But so it's possible to get a 50 on the event. So that's where the 49 comes from.
And oh my goodness, Mackenzie Pavachik, a 9.95. Are you kidding me? Happy
Huge
birthday.
Score.
So
I don't think you could ask for a better birthday present right there.
What a score there. Mackenzie Pavachik gets just a phenomenal score. We do have a couple of exhibitions in Annie Beck and Madison Ward who are going to go on the beam for the Aggies. But the rotational scores from that on the floor with only 5 gymnasts competing, a 49.075 for Southern Utah. And on the beam, Utah State a 49.2. Just shy of a season high, but a phenomenal score nonetheless.
Annie Beck performing a great exhibition routine. She was in the lineups earlier this season. So she's still getting that practice in the competition setting, hopefully to come back next season even stronger on the beam. Great tuck full dismount. Great routine. Utah State coming off that high, 9.95. You can feel the energy in the spectrum. So exciting.
Now Mackenzie Pavlicek, again, 49.5. I mean, just almost unheard of for a gymnast to be able to score that high. And to put that into a little bit of perspective, in the history of Utah State, there have only been 3 gymnasts that have ever done it. Autumn DeHardy scored a 9.925 earlier this season. That's the 4th highest score in program history until now. So congratulations to the birthday girl. And Utah State benefits big time from that. This is going to be a fantastic all-around meet for the Aggies.
Yeah, McKinley, that's also – so we were looking at the scores for all-arounds throughout career for Utah State, and so she's tying for first. So she's officially hit the individual beam record for Utah State. Huge scores. Definitely going to bring out a huge score for Utah State here tonight and create her name forever record on Utah State's list.
The last gymnast in Utah State history that got a 9.95 on the beam, Nicole Kilpatrick, back in 2003. So 3 gymnasts have done it, but none since 2003. And we witnessed an incredible piece of Aggie history here tonight.
So Madison Ward with a fall on her series. Again, this is just exhibition, so it doesn't really matter, doesn't count towards the team score. But you saw that huge layout step out. That was huge in amplitude. It looks like she just got a little bit too much adrenaline there in that series. But again, since this is exhibition, it's perfect practice for Madison. And just as a junior, she has been competing exhibition these past few weeks on beam. So hopefully as a senior, she'll be able to come out and perform all around for the Aggies.
Yeah, I know that talking to her just a little bit last season, I know that has been her goal for a while now. And she has been able to do it a handful of times this season, but it would be so good to see her as a senior just coming out and putting it down every week as an all-arounder. So final scores still. I mean, we have the tentative scores, and it looks like one of the scores is going to be changed for Southern Utah. Giles Wiakowski goes from a 9.775 to a 9.825, so definitely a bit of a jump there, and that will help Southern Utah's floor score from it was already a good score, already at 49.075, but that will bump them up just a little bit. We don't quite have a running score for the meet yet, but tentatively looks like we do have a tentative one, and that's Utah State at 147.25 to Southern Utah's 146.675. So the Aggies are able to extend the gap just a little bit, and with one rotation left, the Aggies looking pretty good. We're going to cut out for a quick break, and we'll come back in just a moment with the final rotation here at the D. Glenn Smith Spectrum. And welcome back to the Spectrum. Utah State has a monster third rotation on the beam, a 49.2 score posted, while Southern Utah, very good rotation on the floor, 49.125. And after 3 rotations, it's the Aggies in the lead, 147.25 to 146.675. Again, 1 rotation to go, so the Aggies just trying to hold on and come out with another victory here against Southern Utah this season. And what a rotation it was. Utah State's Mackenzie Pavlicek on her birthday at 9.95, the highest mark in program history. And now the Aggies moving on to their best event, the floor.
Absolutely. Utah State has had such a wonderful meet. Again, with this being the last home meet, it's so nice to see them coming out really strong and doing such a great last home meet.
The Aggies are on track if they're able to get a 49 or right around there. They're on track for just about the season high. I'm sure that's a mark that they're looking for and a mark that they circled and said we want to hit this here in the final meet. But it's very encouraging for Utah State fans to see this team performing at this level with the conference championship coming up next week. And then hopefully if the Aggies are able to jump enough, only 2 spots they need to move up, an eventual regional berth in the postseason. So for Southern Utah as they get going over on the beam, this is Addison Ledoux. Ledoux will be followed by Cameron Baer, Mary Packham, Karen Gonzalez, Autumn Jorgensen, and Hannah Nip.
Great series we just saw right there. Flick lay, no wobbles. Just what Southern Utah needs right now. Switch leap, split half. Gorgeous leap pass. They are required to do a leap pass on the beam, similar to how they're required to do it on the floor. Little bit of some balance checks there. She looks a little bit nervous up there on the beam. And again, with that beam only being 4 inches and 4 feet off the ground, it's a little bit scary there up on the beam. Definitely requires the most mental energy of a gymnast.
And Ledoux is just a freshman.
Aerial full off. Very solid start for their starter for Southern Utah.
So for Utah State on the floor this rotation, they're going to start with Leighton Varnador. She'll be followed by Emily Briones, and then Michaela Meyer, Faith Leary, Madison Ward, and Autumn DeHardy closing it out. Here is Leighton Varnador.
Round up back handspring double tuck. Huge double tuck. Probably could have made that a pike there. Right into that second tumbling pass. And there's that double pike that we saw a little bit chest low on the landing. See the team back there doing all their choreography. It's always so fun to see teams supporting each other. They spend hours and hours in the gym with each other. So you just end up learning these routines just naturally. As she's getting ready for her last tumbling pass right here in the corner. Round off back handspring full and a half to a front lay. Have that front element. Very good start again for Utah State.
Good start there by Leighton Varnador. And back over to the beam for Southern Utah. Now up is Cameron Baer. Southern Utah last week they scored 48-8-5 on the beam.
Cameron coming off of a little bit of a rough week last week, only scoring an 8.425. So she's definitely hoping to improve that score and get into the 9s. Very difficult series you just saw there. Very impressive that was a round off layout step out. Very hard because that was a round off landed on with a double down. So it's 2 feet on the beam. So with the beam only being 4 inches, your feet can't fit all the way across on the beam. So it's harder to get a little bit power. With another and a front tuck, again with that punch on 2 feet. Very difficult, but a very powerful gymnast on beam. Prepping for her dismount here. Gorgeous gainer side full off. Very good routine. It's going to be a great improvement from last week.
So a couple of scores. Leighton Varnador in her first go on the floor, a 9.675. And Alyssa Ledoux, a 9.825 on the beam for the Thunderbirds. Now coming up for the Aggies, Emily Briones, the junior from San Antonio, Texas. Last week at 9.725 on the floor.
Again, this routine just shows how energetic Emily is, always bringing the fire to every meet that she performs. Right into her first tumbling pass, round up back handspring double tuck. Gorgeous front pass. Emily always brings the sassiness out every single week. You can tell that how much she loves gymnastics, how much she loves performing on floor. Gorgeous front lay, front full. So also similar to beam, the gymnasts are required to do a floor dance element. So that's where their Leo touches the floor at least 1 point, or their Leo touches the beam on beam. Just to add a little bit more levels into it, add a little bit more excitement into the routine for some artistic elements. Right into her last tumbling pass. Gorgeous tumbling pass, gorgeous routine as always. Always bringing the energy, always bringing the fire to every single meet.
So back over to the beam for Southern Utah. Here comes Mary Packham. Mary's following a 9.775 from Cameron Bear on the last performance for the Thunderbirds. And Mary, she's a beam specialist. She's performed on the beam in every competition of the season except for the first. Bring up a 9.775 last week.
Now, specialists sometimes have a lot of pressure on them because they only are competing that one event. They put in all their hours in the gym on this event. Prepping for a series. Flick lay, a little bit bent arms on the first flick. When your arms are totally locked out and straight, you get a little bit more power because you're able to push off the beam a little bit harder, but she's able to perform a really good series from that, so it still works for her, which whatever works to bring out those scores is what you do. Interesting dismount there, front lay, front full off. Gorgeous routine for Southern Utah.
Score coming in for Emily Briones on the floor at 9.825. Solid score there for Briones. Now, back over to the floor, Utah State they make a change in the lineup there. We're going to have Ellie Gullison go in this spot. Instead, we're going to see Michaela Meyer, the freshman, in this spot instead. She did not compete on the floor the last 2 weeks, but she's back at it tonight.
Huge double tuck. A little bit of a bigger step out of there. They are allowed to make a step out of there as long as they are in control of it. But it definitely is up to the gymnast, or up to the judges whether they are in control or not. Right into her next tumbling pass. Front full, front pike. Saw her face there, very proud of that, as she should be. Great leap pass, full 180-degree splits. Getting in that corner. And you see that chalk circle there? That's just so the gymnast knows where she is on the floor so she doesn't go out of bounds accidentally. Right into that next tumbling pass. Huge twisting front elements. Very good choice by Coach Smith. Very strategic, putting her in. Definitely a good choice because that was a great routine.
So back to the beam for Southern Utah. Here goes Karen Gonzalez performing her final routine of an all-around performance. Gonzalez having a solid night. Got a 9.75 on the vault, a 9.7 on the bars, and a 9.8 on the floor. So she's finishing her all-around here.
Karen received a 9.875 last week. Huge score. Hoping to repeat that or get a little bit more few tenths here and there.
Score for Packham on the beam, 9.85. So another big score there for the Thunderbirds.
I love watching Gonzalez's lines. You can tell that she's a very artistic gymnast. Oh, that was a rough landing right there. Split the beam. It happens to every gymnast. Unfortunate ending for her for this meet, but getting right back up, performing well. Hopefully she'll finish strong. See that smile kind of wipe off of her face. Kind of disheartening to see after they've worked so hard in practice week after week to have that fall. But she is finishing this routine so strong, and it's looking so beautiful. Like you just saw there on that acro element, no wobbles. Heading right into her dismount. Front full off, a little bit of a hop, but very solid ending to that fall.
Well, there is a good chance that Southern Utah will be able to drop that score. It is kind of a bummer to see a great all-around night. Have to add that to the score, but Southern Utah is going to be just all right. And for Utah State, Faith Leary now the fourth performer on the floor.
Front lay to a front full and a half. Huge, very difficult front tumbling pass. Faith, a very sassy gymnast. Definitely similar to Emily with her energy. So fun to see a freshman come out and just perform and have fun on the floor. Faith is also a very powerful gymnast, has a lot of quick twitch muscles where she's able to use those muscles very quick to be able to spring her up on these high tumbling passes that we are seeing. A little bit slower, almost catch her breath right in the corner here. Round off back handspring double tuck, huge double tuck. It's been a very solid routine for Faith. And gonna bring out another huge score for Utah State.
Score for Michaela Meyer on the floor, who replaced Ellie Gullison, 9.775. And back over to the beam, Autumn Jorgensen, the second to last gymnast to perform for Southern Utah. Gonzalez, after that fall, picked up at 9.225. So a score that they're going to hope to drop there. But Jorgensen, the other of Southern Utah's two all-arounders, another great night she's having. 9.8 on the vault, a 9.85 on the bars, and a 9.85 on the floor.
Very solid routine so far. Hardly any wobbles, any balance checks. You can tell why she's an all-around gymnast. She's just so solid on every single event. Great switch leap to switch, or switch leap to split jump with those 180-degree splits. Very nice front tuck. Autumn has been so consistent up on the beam. Very calm and confident. Round off, double tuck off. Same dismount we saw Madison Ward do. Very well executed.
On the floor from Utah State, Madison Ward.
Back over to the floor for the Aggies in the fifth spot, Madison Ward. Really one of the greatest floor workers in Utah State history. So solid and consistent week in and week out. She's coming off two consecutive 9.875s on the floor.
Absolutely. Madison Ward and our anchor spot, Autumn Hardy, are definitely the best floor workers from rankings to scores that we've seen this season and from previous seasons from Madison Ward. Utah State has just brought such a great floor team week after week. So it's so nice to see Utah State coming out with this great floor team.
Well, and speaking of which, I mean, 8 out of the 10 meets, I should say, that Utah State's competed in, they've gotten 49 or above in the floor exercise. I mean, it's clearly the strength of the team, and they've just been, every week it seems like they bring it on the floor, and that's greatly helped by the anchors of Madison Ward and Autumn DeHardy. Just two phenomenal floor workers who we're going to see here Looks like there is a momentary delay before Maddie takes the floor, but should be good to go here in just a moment.
Well, as we were talking earlier, since there are no seniors on this team, all these girls are going to be coming back next season, and they're just hitting their peak right now, so I can't wait to see what these girls are going to come back next season. They'll train all summer and all fall and come back next spring in January and even have these greater routines and bring out their best coming up soon. Huge tumbling pass coming out for the front. Gorgeous height. Ridiculous tumbling. That's a full in. So it's a full double back with a full twist on the first flip. Again, you saw that huge amplitude. Every time I watch her tumbling, I'm just in awe of how powerful Madison is and how high she gets on her tumbling. Again, just showing why she deserves all these championships and all these individual titles that she's won for floor. Everyone in the spectrum is always eyes glued in on Maddie when she's performing on floor. Everyone always comes and looks forward to watching Madison and watching Autumn on floor this season. And ready for that last explosive tumbling pass. Round up back handspring, double pike. This has been one of the best routines I've seen Maddie do all season. Hopefully it'll bring out a huge score from Madison.
You might have heard the team cheer loudly right at the beginning of that routine. It's because they saw the score for Faith Leary on the floor, a 9.875. So the high numbers continue to roll in for the Aggies. And then on the beam for Southern Utah, a 9.825 for Autumn Jorgensen. Now for Southern Utah, they have finishing things out the co-beam specialist of the week, Hannah Nip, who brought in a career-high 9.925 just a week ago.
This routine has been so fluid, just from going from element to element, so smooth. A little bit of a balance check there. Luckily, she did not touch the beam. If she would have touched the beam, that would have counted as a fall. Huge series there, huge amplitude on that layout, step out. Hannah looks so confident up there on the beam. You can tell that this is where she thrives in this competition and in gymnastics, is on the beam. Right into a stuck dismount. Layout gainer full, very difficult, very good routine coming out for SUU, and a very good rotation.
On the floor from Utah State, Autumn Hardy.
So that rounds things up and finishes it out for Southern Utah, as now they just await final scores. But Utah State still has one more performance to go, and that is from the three-time floor specialist of the week, Autumn Hardy. One score that we just saw, another enormous score from Madison Ward, 9.9. So Hardy looking to finish this thing out strong for the Aggies as they look for a season-high score.
Opening up with their first tumbling pass of a round up back handspring full double pike. Very well executed. Autumn is such a powerful gymnast on floor, like we've been saying, holding that anchor spot as a freshman, coming out, pulling out some 9.925s we've seen this season. Next tumbling pass, front full and a half to that back layout. And with Autumn just being a freshman, she's definitely going to pull out some great things for Utah State in the upcoming seasons.
No question. 7 individual event titles just this season.
Ready for a last tumbling pass. Front handspring full. So well executed. Always so nice to see D. Hardy on the floor.
So that wraps it up for our performances tonight. We have a score coming in for the final beam performance of the night for Southern Utah, a 9-8 scored by Hannah Knipp. So the good news for Southern Utah, I mean a lot of good news, but that they're going to be able to drop the 9-225 by Karen Gonzalez. The low score they'll keep as a 9-775, and we wait for just a moment for DeHardy's score, but just talk about what you saw from the Aggies there on the floor in that rotation.
Absolutely. Aggies just fed off of each other's energy. We're so explosive with every tumbling pass. And that's what I've loved watching about Utah State this season is their floor and their energy on floor and how they just feed off of each other's energy to come out and build on these great routines that we've seen week after week after week. That was a very difficult skill that you just saw from that exhibition where she landed in that arabesque. I definitely see her upcoming to be a great asset for Southern Utah.
So that wraps it up as far as the performances go tonight. Again, Southern Utah bringing in a solid round there on the beam. Utah State, I think, has to feel really good about what they did on the floor as we still await Autumn DeHardy's score, which I can only imagine is going to be great. But Utah State, I mean, you talk about putting on a complete performance in all 4 events, and I think that it's just tonight was the perfect example of that.
Absolutely. Each of these teams, or especially Utah State, brought their best tonight, brought exactly what they needed to do to bump up their rankings for regionals and hopefully make it into that top 36. And along with SUU, they've had a little bit of some uncharacteristic errors there, a few falls that hopefully that they're probably regretting having, but definitely they brought a good, solid performance that will probably keep them in their rankings, probably keep them still in the top 36, which is where they want to be.
So the final individual score from this rotation, Autumn DeHardy brings in a 9.875, and so what that does is brings the floor rotational score, again, of course tentative, but the floor rotation score for the Aggies there, a 49.25, so they top the 49 mark for the 9th time this season on the floor. And for Southern Utah in that rotation, a 49.075, so great rotation from them on the beam. Again, these are tentative, but as long as everything holds and our calculations all check out, the total team scores, Utah State comes out with a monster score, 196.5, which would be their highest mark of the season in the final meet of the regular season, while Southern Utah a 195.75. So we'll confirm those, and of course we'll have the champions in the ceremony here in a little bit. But just some final thoughts before we cut out to our last break about Utah State's performance and about Southern Utah's performance this evening.
Absolutely. So when I talked to Coach Smith previously this week about her goals for and her expectations for this meet, she was just hoping that the Aggies would get a 196.2, and hopefully with that tentative 196.5 that they will be hopefully receiving, that's going to bring up their score so much and hopefully get them bumped up in those rankings from 38, hopefully get them up to 36 so that they're able to compete in regionals. And with SUU, again, like previously mentioned, they did have some of those uncharacteristic wobbles and falls, but I still think they should be really proud of their performance. They are coming off of a 194.9 from Denver, so hopefully, and I'm sure they performed way better than that from last week. So improvement in gymnastics, really just looking at your scores, personal improvement is so huge. So it's really nice to see both of these teams coming out and putting out big improvements.
Yeah, and it certainly feels like Utah State will likely, barring a something crazy happening next week. It certainly feels like Utah State has a good shot to get into that top 36, and we can only hope so. Utah State's 49.25 on the floor is their second highest of the season on the floor, so a great mark there. And Aggies looking to top their highest score of the season of 196.1, again tentatively a 196.5. We will send it out to a quick break and come back with the final award ceremonies and the official final scores here in just a moment. Excellent meet here tonight, and because it is senior night, Utah State was able to honor the three seniors who none of whom were able to compete for much of this season. We saw Carrie Peel compete just a little bit at the beginning and then had to leave for injury. And then Melanie Osher, Miranda Hone, a couple of gymnasts, all three of those who just had phenomenal Utah State careers. Unfortunate that we didn't get to see them this year, but it was good to see them honored regardless. We've got final results coming up right now, and looks like they are first honoring the vault champion. In third place, Michaela Meyer. Second place, Faith Leary. They were tied for second.
With a score of 9.85.
And
Utah State, Madison
the
Ward.
champion for the vault tonight, Madison Ward. So Maddie picks up her 8th individual title of the season. Now for uneven bars, tied in second place from Southern Utah, Becky Rosa. Also a 9.875 is Utah State's Madison Ward. And the champion for the uneven bars tonight is Utah State's Jasmine Estrella. Jasmine got a 9.925 on the bars to earn that championship. Now to our beam winners. In second place, Mary Packham, 9.85. Also with a 9.85, Emily Briones of Utah State. Also with a 9.85, Taylor Ditmar of Utah State. And in first place, the champion of tonight's beam with a 9.95, Mackenzie Pavacek on her birthday. Picking up, now tied for first place of the greatest beam routine in Utah State program history, tied with 3 others. On floor, tied for second, Utah State's Autumn DeHardy. Autumn had a 9.875. Tied with Autumn with a 9.875, also from Utah State, is Faith Leary. And the champion of tonight's floor event, picking up her 9th title of the season, Madison Ward. A 9.9 even for Maddie. So a lot of Utah State gymnasts getting flowers. Final score results, taking second place tonight is Southern Utah. Oh, I'm sorry, this is all-arounders. And in second place in the all-around is Karen Gonzalez with a 38.475. And in first place in the all-around is Autumn Jorgensen, 39.325. Very nice score there for Autumn Jorgensen.
Pepsi is a proud sponsor of Aggie Gymnastics. We would like to announce tonight's winner of the Pepsi Rock Star of the Meet Award.
So looks like now they're going to announce the Rock Star of the Meet, and no surprise here, goes to McKinley Pavacek on her birthday after posting one of the greatest beam routines in Utah State history. Now the final team scores. I got ahead of myself just a moment ago, but in second place is Southern Utah with a score of 195.75. That's the official final score for the Thunderbirds. And for the second time this season, topping Southern Utah, Utah State earns a 3rd highest mark in school history 196.5. We saw all kinds of historic events tonight, and as we just heard there, the third highest mark in program history. That's
Huge
nothing
scores.
to scoff at.
Absolutely huge scores coming out from Utah State with that 196.5, third highest in program history. And what a better way to finish it at the end of the season with Amy Smith as her first year as head coach. She's able to bring out these huge scores. I'm sure the team is so excited about this. Definitely going to help their rankings coming out.
Well, and just think about the momentum and everything that this gives you, the confidence moving forward to the conference championship. Last season, we saw teams get to the conference championship and get to the postseason who didn't have the highest RQS, but then came out and just blew everyone away at the championship, BYU being one of those. I think that Utah State has a really good shot to go down to Southern Utah next week for the conference championship and really make some noise. Now, we mentioned it a few times. That is the third highest score in program history. Now, you're probably wondering what the top two are. Number one was back in 1997 when they posted a 197.225. And the second highest was back in 2003, a 196.675. So they come very near that second highest mark in program history. And, it was a lot of fun to watch. Every event, Utah State finishes with a 49 or higher. On the vault, a 49.05. On the bars, a 49 even. On the beam, a 49.2. And on the floor, a 49.250. While for Southern Utah, on the vault, 47.55. On the bars, 48.9. On the I'm sorry, I misread that. On the vault, a 48.65. Not a 97. On the bars, a 48.9. On the beam, a 49.075. And on the floor, a 49.125 for the Thunderbirds. Final thoughts before we wrap this thing up. We just witnessed a historic meet in Utah State gymnastics history.
Absolutely. Historic is the right word to describe it. Amazing things that we've seen from both teams. So proud of Utah State and what they accomplished tonight.
Thank you for tuning in to Utah State Gymnastics. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a great season. I wish that we could have a few more meets here at home, but unfortunately that's not the case. But best of luck to both of these teams next week as they head down to Cedar City for the conference championships and then wherever the postseason takes them. For my broadcast partner, Courtney McGill, I'm Jaden Johnson. And the final score from tonight's meet, Utah State 196.5, Southern Utah 195.75. Have a good night, and as always, go Aggies.